Good afternoon and welcome to Not Minding My Own Business. I am your host, Russell Farbiars, your estate planning and elder law attorney. And I am joined here today with Evan Markwood of USHealth Advisors. Welcome, Evan.
Thank you very much, Russell. Appreciate you having me.
Sure. It's been a pleasure getting to know you over the last couple of months, and so I'm thrilled to have you here today. Um, as we get started here, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about you and about your company that you work with?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. My name, again, well, my name's Evan, and my company's US Health Advisors, and I help individuals that don't have access to benefits through an employer for their health care, help those folks find the absolute best option for them. Um, there's a lot of choices out there. It can be a very expensive and daunting and overwhelming task, especially if you've never done it. So my role is to, as fiduciary, help them find the absolute best thing for their situation and go and attain that coverage for themselves and their family.
So you are the dreaded health insurance broker.
That's right. I've been called worse, but that is true.
It seems that health insurance never gets any easier. It just gets more complicated. Um, and I can see from your background that you have a couple of different providers that you work with. So you would be considered an independent advisor?
I'm considered actually a captive agent.
Okay.
So, if I'm going to earn commissions or if I'm going to accept premiums, it's for one company and one company only. And it's a very restrictive company as to who they will insure. So most of my time, frankly, is spent advising on other plans that I don't represent. And in the end, I can't sign people up for those plans. I can help them understand those plans, help them find the right thing, but I can't end up signing them up for that or accepting premiums on their behalf for the insurance company.
So you work for US Health. So I see Cigna and Freedom Life. Tell me a little bit about these other companies that are up on
Sure.
your logo.
Appreciate that. So yeah, my company's called US Health Advisors, and we are the selling arm, the group of agents for the US Health Group. US Health Group has a number of insurance companies, including Freedom Life.
Okay.
Freedom Life is a 100-year-old insurance provider out of Fort Worth, Texas. And, insurance, the names change and, entities change, but yeah, they've been around about 100 years and they're simply an insurance provider. And the underwriter is ultimately responsible for paying bills on behalf of customers in exchange for those premiums. So they're the underwriter. Freedom Life is the underwriter. US Health Group, again, is the parent company. US Health Advisors is the selling arm, and we were acquired by United Healthcare,
Okay.
another huge insurance company. And Cigna is a network. So Cigna is a huge insurance company, but I don't sell Cigna insurance. They approached our company in 2013 and said that if we could get this particular plan approved in these states, that we could use their network. So Cigna negotiates with doctors and providers all the time to add value to their own health plans, but they're largely out of the individual market. So I think they probably approached us so they could retain some of that market share on behalf of their providers. So that's the network. It says Cigna on the card, but ultimately Cigna's not paying their bills. That comes to Freedom Life, who's the underwriter.
Okay. So
I'm sure it's not any more clear now than it was when you saw those 5 logos.
it is, but it explains why they're all up there behind you. And that's good. And like I said, health insurance doesn't get any less complicated. It gets more complicated. One thing you said that I want to highlight is you said that on the individual market. So I want to make sure that we talk about that for a moment. So you're working not on the group side, but on the individual side. Am I correct about that?
That is correct. So I work with a lot of small businesses. A lot of small businesses, frankly, cannot afford a group health plan that meets all the requirements of a qualified health plan as set forth in the law, the Affordable Care Act.
Okay.
It's very, very expensive, especially if it's a company under 10 employees. Some of those people are family members. So there's all kinds of things that make that an expensive endeavor often. I always recommend getting quotes. I don't provide quotes for group health. Of course, my license allows me to talk about policies and answer questions. And I have a vast network in several states of wonderful group providers that I work closely with, but it's not group insurance.
Okay.
It's individual insurance that I sell.
Okay. So let's talk about there are differences between what you need to do to qualify for group coverage versus individual coverage. First, can you tell our listeners, is there any health underwriting with the products that you sell?
Yes, there is. So there's health underwriting no matter what. Even with the Affordable Care Act that offers great protections for pre-existing conditions, there's still considerable underwriting. They're still considering the health of people and the eventual outcomes of them and trying to make predictions as to how much they will need to pay out in claims. And then they need to cover that with premiums and assistance, et cetera. So there's a lot of underwriting going on. But yes, with individual plans, and in order to qualify for the plan that I have in particular, you need to be relatively healthy. So the insurance company looks at past prescription records and a past medical history to make a determination as to one's risk, and that ultimately drives the premium that is offered. So yes, it's medically underwritten health coverage that I try to sell. Yes.
Are the pre-existing condition protections in the Affordable Care Act applicable to individual policies?
Not for the policy that I have, and in several that are not available on the exchange because they do not meet the requirements of the law. So pre-existing conditions is one of those protections that is removed intentionally from the private plan that I have. And the goal there is to offer coverage that's based on one's health as opposed to one's wealth. Without getting political, the Affordable Care Act is a wonderful, wonderful law. But like any law, there are thousands of people that, any law is, there's two groups. One that it benefits wildly and one that's going to be opposed to it for various reasons.
Yeah, I mean, we can't get away from the fact that the Affordable Care Act has been very controversial since its passing. There's been, so there's I could see you tiptoeing around that, and I agree with what you just said, which is that it helps a lot of people, but it doesn't help other people, and that's what what I'm trying to make just get out there is how your plan helps a certain group of people, and it sounds like that's primarily going to be self-employed, relatively healthy people. But what is relatively healthy mean?
Yeah, I wish I could answer that for you. I'm not an underwriter. I can, there's millions and millions of conditions probably that would, either cause a rate to be higher or disallow one entirely from getting a policy. But, if you're taking a medicine for blood pressure or thyroid or, cholesterol or something like that, you're relatively decent BMI, you're considered a healthy person. If you have cancer or have had a stroke in the last, or have crippling arthritis, those are some examples of things that would not classify you as a healthy person. And companies will, in general, if they are met with a potential claim like that, which is exactly what it is. This is a potential claim that they have to consider when offering, deciding the premium. Insurance company will either say, A, yes, we will insure you, but we will not cover that condition. They will say, B, we will cover you, including that condition, but here's your new rate. This is not the preferred rate. It includes this amount because of that condition. And then 3, they will just say, no, thank you. We'd rather not have you as a customer right now.
I'm sure those are always fun conversations to have with people.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's so hard, and you have to sort of remind people that that's exactly why the rates are so low. I mean, I'll tell you that the rates are a lot lower than Obamacare or Affordable Care Act coverage for arguably superior coverage in many areas. And that's because, if an individual qualifies to enter a group that only accepts relatively healthy people, then that individual deserves to pay a little less for their health insurance because they're going to have fewer claims. And that's a controversial statement. And that's one of the wonderful things that the Affordable Care Act has written into the law, that there's absolutely no condition that a person could have that would disallow them from enrolling in individual coverage through the Affordable Care Act. The flip side of that is that the premiums can be higher because the folks that are participating in those plans are all collectively paying more so that the people with those pre-existing conditions can receive the care that they deserve.
Yeah, and that is, again, that gets controversial because you on one side it's you should reward healthy people, but on the other side is if you take all the healthy people and you put them in one bucket from an insurance perspective, you've now left all of the claims in the other bucket, and therefore those premiums necessarily have to be incredibly high to justify the plan. And so we're not going to solve that problem here today. We're not going to answer that question.
I agree.
But it's certainly something that, and I think that our policymakers have struggled with this as to how to address that situation. Now, the plan that you're selling, is that on the exchange, or is this an off exchange product?
That's correct. It's an off exchange product. The only companies that are allowed to participate in that marketplace are ones that provide a qualified health plan. And there's, I don't know how big the law is, but it's a huge law. And
yes, it is.
Those policies require several things by law. And if you don't want to provide those protections necessarily, then you can't be considered a qualified health plan. We're considered accepted benefits under the Affordable Care Act. Okay. Totally different definition. And frankly, the Affordable Care Act redefined health coverage, literally redefined the word. So I technically cannot say that I sell major medical health coverage because it's not a qualified health plan. Still, it's major medical, unlimited coverage in exchange for a premium. And prescriptions and hospitals and doctors and labs and all the things that one might need if they were sick or injured or in order to stay well. But by law, it's not major medical. It's not health insurance even, because that law redefined the term.
Because the law defines what those words mean.
That's correct.
It's amazing how in the law we can just decide that words mean things even if that's not what they mean colloquially.
That's right.
But that's welcome to the legal profession. That's the way things work. We call they teach us that that they're called terms of art. So, Evan, how did you originally get into working in health insurance? And I know you and I have talked about this, and I think it's a really neat story. So that's why I want to make sure we share it with our listeners.
Well, thank you. It's been a neat experience. Thank you for asking that question. For years and years and years, I enjoyed a corporate career, and I had fantastic benefits, which I largely took for granted. I complained about the small amount that they took out of my check every week or every 2 weeks. I complained about it because I didn't really use my health coverage, and it felt like an expense, and that I would have rather done without. And when I came to the end of that corporate career, rather abruptly, and was offered to continue that coverage on my own dime through another law called COBRA, which is a 5-letter or 6-letter acronym for a tremendously long law. But COBRA coverage allows an individual that had group benefits to continue that coverage on their own dime, so to speak.
And COBRA has nothing to do with healthcare. It was the Consolidated Budget Reconciliation Act, I think 1986. I might be wrong about the year, but that's what COBRA stands for.
That's exactly right. And yes, there's the word omnibus is in there, and
yes.
that one, requires a dictionary all on itself, all on its own. But how that requires companies to offer that coverage, I'm not sure of the mechanics of it, but in the end, companies that offer a group plan have to offer, well, within limits, over 50 people, and there's some other requirements. But if you fit that criteria, then you have to offer that coverage to the employee after they've left the company or
and it's at
the plan.
And it's at, I believe, 105% of the cost that the company pays. And then there are some states that have what are called mini COBRA, which will then sort of cover businesses that are less than 50. So I know a couple things about COBRA.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Well, in my day-to-day life, COBRA is simply one of the most expensive options that an individual can entertain. Again, I always recommend get a quote, because at the end of the day, it makes me look wonderful. But that COBRA letter that I got, and Russell, I have 5 children. My oldest is up and out, but 4 of them are teenagers, and they're all in school at this moment. But for the last 2 years, they were right overhead here in my home office, sharing internet with me. But those 5 children are, relatively expensive to insure. So I was handed an offer to purchase COBRA for about $2,700 per month. And $2,700 was not something I was prepared for. That's when I realized how wonderful the care that I had for 20 years was, and how I should never have taken it for granted, because because we needed it. And I immediately saw a high need for me to seek other options. And I found USHealth Advisors, partly because, just in my regular job search, it came up, and also because it offered a wonderful solution for my particular situation. A self-employed person with a family that couldn't afford COBRA and needed to insure their family.
Well, and it's nice you have the experience. You can really empathize with your clients as they come in, because you've been there where they are, and I'm sure that helps you as you're working through different cases.
Yes, it does. And I say a lot, and if I found something better, I'd go and sell that. I mean, my mission is to help other people every day. And if I found something better overall, then that's probably what I'd go after to sell.
Well, that's wonderful. Now, I did have the opportunity to meet your lovely wife, and a couple of months ago, and so you have the 5 children. What do you guys like to do when you're not working?
Well, I appreciate that question. With 5 children, there's a considerable running around to do, especially with teens. So there's events, and there's friends, and there's sporting, and there's clubs, and there's extracurricular things, and there's doctor's appointments and dentist appointments, and considerable running around is a good way to put it.
I have 3, and I feel that way. So if you have 5, God bless you.
Thank you very much. I am blessed indeed, in many, many ways, and with children. But my wife and I also enjoy playing pool. We were in a pool league for a time. I'm also in the darts league, so that gets me out of the house occasionally. We're very active in our church in Wyomissing, which is another great part of our life. And I enjoy television and sporting events, and particularly football this time of year, and auto racing all year long, and any type of motorsport, and the outdoors, and things like that. But yeah, lots of running around.
Well, it's a good year to be an Eagles fan if you're an Eagles fan.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yep.
yeah. I think as of today, what they're 7-1. I think is the last I saw.
That is correct. Yes, sir.
Yeah. What about baseball? Were you rooting for the Phillies in the World Series?
I've never really followed a lot of baseball, but it is hard to be a Pennsylvania resident and not root for the Phillies, especially when they've been doing so well. So yes, that was a great run. Sorry it came to that end like that, but it was great. Yeah.
But maybe the Eagles are going to be in the Super Bowl this year. Who knows?
That could very well be. I've always been a Denver Broncos fan, for better or for worse, and that continues. But it's a lot easier to root for the Eagles this season than it is for the Broncos.
Well, and there's a lot of seasons when rooting for the Eagles can be real challenging. So it's nice to have that every once.
That's true. And I've always liked the Eagles to some degree because they are the same division as the Cowboys, and I absolutely hate the Cowboys. Sorry, folks, that's half of America that I'm
yeah,
angering.
but I'm in the half with you, so we're on the same page.
And the only reason I really hate the Cowboys is because they stomped the Broncos in 1977 Super Bowl. So, but yeah, I'm an Eagles fan.
Yeah, well, wonderful. What do you like to do? If you get away, are there any vacation destinations that you like to get to?
Yeah, so we love vacations. Again, 5 kids kind of hinders that sometimes, but we enjoy cruising in the Caribbean. It's just beautiful and wonderful. My wife spent extensive time in Europe. I've never been.
Wow.
But the West is a wonderful place. Colorado, if you've never experienced the Rocky Mountains, it's just an unbelievable bit of nature out there. So yeah, we enjoy traveling.
Traveling is great. I'm glad that traveling is back now after a 2.5 year hiatus where
Yes.
It was not advisable.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, are you originally from the Berks County area, or are you a transplant?
I'm a transplant. Yeah. So I grew up in Colorado.
Oh,
Hence my affinity for the Broncos and nature and the high life there, the Rocky Mountain high life. But and I moved to DC and lived in DC for 15 years, and in the surrounding areas. Met my wife in DC, and then we had an opportunity through a corporate promotion to come to Pennsylvania, and we found Berks County, and it's been our home for 18 years.
What's your fondest memory of Berks County?
Boy, that is a tough one. My fondest memory, of course, I'm making memories all the time here. That's a tough one. I'm not very prepared for that. My fondest memory, it would probably have, I'll have to pass on that one. I can't think of a particular favorite at this point. Yeah. You know what? I'll go back. I've never really enjoyed baseball that much, but we have one of the most fantastic minor league ballparks
Absolutely
in the country, and it's blocks from my home, and the tickets are incredibly affordable, and it offers wonderful family entertainment. And if between that and pretzels, I think those are some great memories of Berks County.
Baseball, pretzels, maybe a beer.
Absolutely.
There you go. You've got a perfect Berks in a box right there.
That's right.
Are there any organizations in the community that you like to support?
Well, as you know, I'm in the SBRA. I'm also in PRE, which is a professional networking group. And we're active in our church, and We've been in Rotary and, several community programs like that. At this point, it's mostly my networking affiliations. I'm a member of the RBAR, the Reading Berks Association of Realtors.
Okay.
And so it's largely surrounding church and networking.
Very, very nice. So this has been a wonderful conversation, and I truly appreciate you being here. What is one thing that that people should be more aware of about what you do?
Yeah, so I appreciate that question a lot. People need to be aware that there are choices in their individual health coverage. And if you go online and try to search it, there's a lot of people out there trying to just get your information so they can sell it to agents. So folks need to know that there are options, and the best way to learn about those is to find a local agent who is familiar with all of those choices and is bound by law to help them find the best outcomes. So that there are choices and they're not all on the exchange.
Okay. And if someone wants to reach out to you, I see your phone number is up on the screen there, but is that the best way to reach you?
Yes, my personal cell phone, still a Maryland number. Sorry, Pennsylvanians, but cell phones are great in that respect, I think. So it's a 301 number, 301-442-5106. I also have a 484-334-4588. And if you Google Evan Markwood, hopefully you'll see my bald head and glasses right at the top of the page. And I can be contacted there or on Facebook. Yeah, but my personal cell phone is absolutely the best way to get a hold of me, Russell.
Well, thank you, Evan. I appreciate you taking the time to speak with me today on our show, and to our listeners. This has been another episode of Not Minding My Own Business, and I'll be back next week poking around in someone's business with you. So again, Evan, thank you.
Russell, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.